Hello, and welcome to All Elite Arcade Episode 2. I am Evil Uno here with the Chugs. Hi, Chugs.
Hey, what's going on, man?
Hey, not much. We're about to talk some video games. If you did not know, this is our video game discussion podcast. We'll be talking the news. We'll be talking some big pieces. But before that, as always, we will be talking about the games that we are actively playing. And, we always have a little discussion beforehand. We have an idea of what everyone's talking about, but we try to keep it low so that me and Chugs can talk about it for real on these podcasts. This is actually the time we've reserved to talk, so you are all privy to that information.
Yes.
I would like to, if you don't mind, please. What games you playing nowadays, Chugs?
Yeah. So again, my rotation is pretty similar in the sense of, once again, I'm continuing to go through. I go through a 5-game cycle on Twitch. Currently, that being The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, FF7 Rebirth, post-game side content, Dark Souls 2. Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, Silent Hill 1. That's the normal rotation I go through because a lot of my free time is spent streaming. But actually, Uno, I cannot wait for the Elden Ring DLC. I don't know if I can wait any longer. Yeah, in June. It's so soon. It is so soon. So I actually started a new Elden Ring file. Just because I really want to play the game, kind of get accustomed to it again. And just as I jumped back into Elden Ring, even though I've already played it, put hundreds of hours into Elden Ring, I can't reiterate enough how special that video game is. Like, I really stand by this. I think it's easily, for me, top 3, maybe number 1 as far as greatest video games ever made. Elden Ring is such a special game.
So I know, like, both of us have had this discussion before about how we believed it was the best game we ever played, and that was like the year it came out. But like, removed from it, I still don't know if there's any game I've played that is better than it. And just like that sense of discovery. And it's kind of funny. So that you just recently replayed it for DLC reasons, coming out in June.
Yeah.
I'm super excited for that too. We actually have such little information about the DLC, and honestly, that's kind of how I like it. But I did the same thing a few weeks ago where I restarted from scratch, and
oh, nice.
Let me tell you, I was completely humbled by the game. Unlike you, I don't play the Souls games that often. You know, Elden Ring was actually, other than Bloodborne, the only Souls game I ever beat. I wasn't capable of beating 2, 1, or 3 at the time. Now I bet if I would go back, I probably would have a chance. I completed all of Elden Ring. I did 2 different endings. I did it by, saving a certain portion, going back to it. But
sure.
Starting from scratch, I told myself, like, oh yeah, I beat this game. It shouldn't be too hard to get back into it. How difficult is the beginning, really? I have no idea how I beat this game, because I tried playing it for about 6 hours, and the entirety of the time I didn't get anything done. I don't know if it was the character I chose. I decided to try and go like, so I never played with the sorcery and the faith builds. I never played with like the spells. I did a purely dex build, just blocking and attacking. And so I thought like, I'll jump into that. And the beginning of that game is ultra difficult with magic because you really don't have much mana to play with, and you really don't have strong spells at the very beginning. I got destroyed to the point that I thought, I don't know if I could beat this game again. What about you? What did you end up doing?
Yeah, so funny enough, actually, it's interesting that you bring that up, because in all of my Soulsborne experience, to this day, I really want to, but I've never done a magic build ever. Mm-hmm. It's always been, generally speaking, a quality build. So a mixture of strength and dexterity for the most part. And as time has gone on, it's changed. When I first started playing, I would use a shield and then also a sword. Now I'm a big two-hand my sword guy.
Oh yeah,
I'm a big two-hander.
I realized eventually that the shield was pointless for me because I never even attempted to block. I was always attacking and rolling.
Right. So, but when I started this new file, I started as the Wretch, or the Wretched class, where you start with no armor whatsoever. All you have is a club. But the interesting thing about starting with that stat process is you do start at level 1. So every single stat that you have is at skill 10, let's say.
Okay.
So actually, it sounds intimidating, but it really puts you in a position to make kind of any build that you want. So I always start a new file thinking, okay, maybe this will be the time where I start to focus on intelligence a little bit more or faith a little bit more. And I always get wrapped in to doing a strength and dex build. I just can't help it.
I can't help it. I haven't played a full mage build, so every time I've dabbled in the magic in those games, I just end up not enjoying it because I feel like that game is all about blocking, rolling out of the way, and parrying, and just trying to get in on the little bit of frames that you can actually get in there. Whereas I've always viewed it as magic being a crutch in those games that are like, because you can do it from afar and because you can really max it out and make it strong, it felt like an easy way to play that game. But it's not really easy at first.
No,
not at all.
No, not at all. And on top of that too, it's like a whole different game. Like there are so many spells and incantations and sorceries that I have collected, and I have no idea what so many of them do. Because I've just never done a magic build. But like the fun that could be and how fresh and different that game would feel. But you know what's interesting? I know this is kind of off topic a little bit, but we did bring up the games that I'm currently playing. I am playing Dark Souls 2 currently on stream right now as well. And there's a very interesting stat in Dark Souls 2 called adaptability. Because again, like you had mentioned, so much of Dark Souls is rolling and dodging and getting out of the way. In Dark Souls 2, there's a stat called adaptability, which literally determines your iframes of how easily or not easily you can roll away from enemy attacks. Which is something that you have to focus on, which is so wild and so different. Whereas now in Dark Souls 3 and Elden Ring and Bloodborne,
there's
and things
a designated
like that,
amount, right?
That's a stat that is just completely consistent. But in Dark Souls 2, your iframes are determined by an adaptability stat, which is just wild. But again, I'm a big fan of Dark Souls 2 as well. Certainly not my favorite Dark Souls game, but I have such a blast with it, and it's been really fun playing through that as well. But yeah, Elden Ring is a special game, man. The DLC, again, I don't know if this is true, but I keep hearing rumors that this DLC is going to be like practically an entire game.
That's what I heard. Size-wise, as if you took the basement away, it would be similar. If you took the well systems, that's an insanely big game.
Unbelievable.
Just on its own, if you take that away. That is probably bigger than Dark Souls 2 on its own. If that is the case, if rumors are true. Right. One question about the adaptability stuff. Are you so you're playing with it right now? Are you actually investing points in it? Do you feel like there's a clear difference when you invest into it?
I am, and you certainly notice a difference. So the challenging thing, especially up front, is obviously you want to focus on your health and your stamina and strength and dex and things like that. But I always make sure every 4 or 5 points or so, I will add some more points to adaptability, and you definitely notice a difference in your rolls.
Okay.
I think like any stat, once you get to a certain point, it's in a lot of ways useless.
Yeah, it becomes redundant after a while, for sure.
Right. But definitely early on. Dark Souls 2 has like a slower paced Souls feel. Like, and not in a bad way. It just is it's a very, very different feel from, say, like going from Dark Souls 2 to Dark Souls 3. It is such a massive jump as far as the way that the gameplay works. Elden Ring, same thing. But Dark Souls 2 is fun. It has like it has a different challenge in the sense of you have to be very careful about what you choose to press button-wise. Like, if I decide to drink my Estus, I better be far away from an enemy because I'm not going to be able to roll out of the way, and I'm not going to be able to dodge, and your health doesn't come back immediately. It's kind of like a slower process.
I actually found my little bit of time with Dark Souls 2 from jumping on from one to the second one is, and I haven't completed it, so this is maybe not an accurate representation of the game, and maybe it's just my playthrough. But that game is a real, and I don't know if we're allowed to swear. This is our own podcast. We'll just find out. That game is a real son of a bitch. It like in the little bit I played, it plays it does not care if you fall off the map. It does not care if you go into a small room. It will bombard you with 5 characters.
Yep.
It really stacks the odds against you a lot more than I thought it would.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if that's consistent through the entirety of the game, but I found myself like butting heads with the systems a lot more in the second game than I did in the first one. The first one, like the difficulty was clear enough. Like, okay, it's a difficult situation. I'm on a bridge or whatever. I understand that. The second one, it feels like I thought I was addressing the situation, and the next thing you know, 2 people from behind me start running, and they come at me as well.
And you're 100% right. Like, I'd say 75% of the challenge in Dark Souls 2 is trying to separate the enemies within a room. Because lots of times, like you said, just today, I was actually just streaming Dark Souls 2 earlier today. And when I went into a room, I made the mistake of not checking behind me. And there's a big difference between dealing with 2 enemies in Dark Souls 2 and 5 or 6. If it's 5 or 6, you're done. There's just nothing you can do. Yeah. So it's definitely a different process, but it's fun. There's a certain charm to me with Dark Souls 2 that I really, really enjoy it. And as I'm playing Dark Souls 2 and starting this new file in Elden Ring, man, I'm a huge Soulsborne fan. Big time. Love the games.
I can't wait to see what comes up with the DLC as well, because like I played the Bloodborne DLC, I played the Dark Souls 3 DLC, and both of those were incredible. The Bloodborne one I really liked. The difficulty hike on that was insane, but
yeah,
it felt really rewarding when you got through those bosses.
Oh my gosh, so good.
Any other games you're playing this week?
God, nothing currently that I'm playing. I'll tell you there are 2 games that I would love to start very, very soon. One of them being Final Fantasy 16 recently released a story DLC.
Yes.
Which I am so excited about. I mean this, Uno. FF16 is my second favorite Final Fantasy of all time.
Really?
Like, by a mile.
Really?
I love Final Fantasy 16.
I played about 12, 13 hours. I really enjoyed it. I like the adult tone of it way more than the previous games. Not that they're childish, but this one, like, it has language. There's straight up murder, which the other ones, like, it builds to it. This one gets right into it as well.
It's a beautiful experience. I feel like a big reason that FF16 shines so well, aside from the great music and the super fun combat, the characters are so well developed. Like, I really, really care about the main character, Clive, and all the characters in between. It's such an amazing, amazing game. And why I'm so excited for this next DLC is I played the first DLC, which was a blast, and there was some cool story stuff, not super long, but this one apparently is a very story-driven DLC. So because of how excellent the story was in FF16, I can't wait to see what this entails. I think it's going to be awesome. For
sure. What was that the second one you said you were excited about?
Oh, yeah. So the second one, I am a huge fan of Moon Studios. A massive, massive fan. These are the devs behind Ori and the Will of the Wisps and Ori and the Blind Forest.
Incredible game.
So good. I to this day, Uno, if you play... I've said this before. If I, for whatever reason, needed to cry on screen... all you need to give me is a headset with the Ori and the Will of the Wisps main theme. Give me 5 minutes. I'll be crying.
Really?
No problem.
Okay.
That song.
We should test that. We should put a timer down at some point.
It would work. It's a beautiful, beautiful music, a beautiful game. But Moon Studios recently released a early access or alpha version of a game called No Rest for the Wicked, which is this gorgeous action RPG game. I've only seen footage. I haven't played it yet, but I can't wait to jump into this game. It just looks absolutely unbelievable. And again, Moon Studios has knocked it out of the park on every single project they've ever worked on. I know this game is just going to be unreal. So those are the 2 that are at the top of my list right now as far as games to play soon.
That's funny enough. I had no idea they even made that game. I love Ori. Both of those games are incredible Metroidvania games.
Yep.
The textures on it, the visuals, the audio, all of it is, and also just gameplay wise, it just very smooth. The movement from one area to the others, the added powers that they jump onto. I really like those games. So yeah, I'll probably give that one a try for sure as well.
I think you'd love it.
I think so too. And plus, you can never go wrong with devs that have a sure track of games. You know, the last two are so incredible. I'll give them a chance at anything they'll create from here on for sure.
Right.
Right. Me on my end, I've actually I played a little more of Final Fantasy since last week. I think last week I told everyone I was in one of the desert areas, but I just got back to. Maybe I shouldn't discuss where it is in case you've never played a Final Fantasy game. But
Sure.
I played about a couple more hours. I'm really enjoying it still. I think I'm going to take a slower approach to the rest of the game, just because the next few weeks of game have been. We're in for a lot of big games in the next like 2 months. So I think I'm going to gradually try to finish that one. But in the meantime, usually when I play a big meaty game, I try to jump into some smaller independent games to kind of like cut the rhythm of like the large game out of my life. I like playing little games that I know I could probably complete in 4 to 5 hours. So I've actually played a few games this week that I've not played last week. I'd like to talk about them.
Please.
Both of them were on Xbox Game Pass, so if you're interested, you can do this. The first one was
worth it.
Botany Manor. I don't know if you've heard of this one. It's a first-person walking simulator / puzzle game where you walk through this mansion. It's very colorful. The visual aesthetics of it kind of make me think of Jonathan Blow's The Witness, if you've ever played that. So like a lot of primary colors, a lot of like it's just very vibrant when you walk around. But what you do is you essentially navigate the world and start finding clues as to how you grow specific plants, and it's a puzzle game where you grow flowers, which is not, to some people, is a turnoff on its own. I've played other surprisingly flower games like Strange Horticulture, which I really enjoyed as well. And so this one is like you go around, you read through people's memos, you go through posters, and they have like slight indications on how you can influence the specific flowers. And it's not like any of these flowers are real. So for example, some flowers you have to set on fire to get to the first growth period, or you have to emulate lightning, so you use flash photography to make it seem like there's lightning towards it. It's been really neat. It's a nice little palate cleanser. It's very relaxing. There's no sense of urgency, so it's just you're taking it slow, and I've really been enjoying the little bit of time I've put into that. I've played about an hour and a bit, and I've heard it's about 4 hours, and so I'll probably complete that one by next week for sure.
Sounds awesome.
I'm enjoying it. I'm a big puzzle guy. Honestly,
yes, you are.
If you put me in front of a puzzle, I can entertain myself for a very long time. With some exceptions, there are puzzles. I think Baba Is You or was that what that was called? Baba? Yeah, I believe it was called Baba Is You. It's one of these.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, it's like a programming language that you essentially move pieces to change the programming language. That, for example, I loved, but also is frustrating because it's so complex. This one's more of a cut and dry puzzle game. You just kind of have to deduce what passage is related to what flower. So I've been really enjoying that, and if you like puzzle games, I would suggest you play it. It's on Xbox Game Pass. The other one I've been playing is this stop motion point and click adventure game called Harold Halibut. It came out yesterday, or actually when this airs last week. But it's very slow paced. I like point and click games a lot too. I think I grew in an era where point and click games were like the thing you could play on computers, because when we were young, that was about as exciting as a computer game would get, other than like Ultima or Diablo or all those games. Unreal, Unreal Tournament I was a big fan of as a kid. But this one is like a stop animation sci-fi point and click game, but I've played about an hour and a half, 2 hours. It is quite slow. So I don't have a clear opinion as of yet on what I've been playing. The dialogue's been very witty. It's a very quirky looking game. And situationally, like, I like the atmosphere they've created. It's about a spaceship leaving Earth and going for a second Earth, and they eventually find out that that Earth is not habitable, and they end up crashing on it into what is essentially a water planet. And this is like several 100 years later, and so it's just like the colony that lives there, and it's got some pretty zany humor as of yet. I don't know the full scope of the gameplay, but I've been very, very enjoying it. The meatiest piece that I've been playing, and we might end up talking about these every week, is Fortnite. Sure. I've put a lot of time into Fortnite again, and we will keep talking about Fortnite. We actually have a Fortnite piece of news later on that we will discuss as well. But the last few weeks, they've added Avatar characters. So from the anime Avatar, I've never watched it. I know nothing about it, I'll be honest.
Really?
I like anime myself, but I've never, ever watched those. But the addition of those characters into Fortnite, what I like about Fortnite is they will change the way the game operates every few weeks by adding weaponry that is not just weapons. So Avatar added in these a ton of elemental stuff. So you have like a water element that you can use, so you can shoot water beams at people. You have a earth one, so you can create walls of earth to surround you and block off enemies and throw rocks at people. You have a fire, that one's pretty straightforward. You have a wind one that essentially creates like a wind vehicle that you can go faster. And so that's been really neat. It's kind of, I like how Fortnite will expand upon the game and kind of, it doesn't get too repetitive, especially with all the other modes. You can always jump into the racing, into the Lego mode. But even its core game, the Battle Royale and the Zero build, is also always evolving. And so that's been really neat to put in some time into. It's been a lot of fun to play with some friends. And the new additions that they've put into the last few weeks have been very, very interesting. It makes for the late game, when you're down to the last final 10 people, way more exciting, way more frenetic, because everyone's using powers, everyone's flying all over the map, and it's been thoroughly enjoyable for me.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Fortnite. I know we had mentioned this before. Maybe I know we for sure talked about it outside of the podcast, but I think even we mentioned this maybe last week. But again, the incredible thing about Fortnite and Epic Games is how they just, my goodness, they are constantly adding new stuff, new content, giving you a reason to come back and play this game. There's a big reason that game has been on top for so long, and Fortnite is just showing that time and time again with all the new content they have.
And I talk about Fortnite content. We're actually going to be getting to some pieces about Fortnite content as well as some other Fortnite news right after this. And we're back. Hello, welcome back to All Elite Arcade. We're talking the news and headlines for the week of, I don't know how to just, late April. That is the week of late April, whichever week of late April that is. That is what we're talking about. We've already teased some Fortnite stuff. I'd actually like to talk about that a little later, because first, and these are ones that I'm always excited for. I'm really excited nowadays how publishers have decided to go digitally, and so we can get all kinds of cool gaming announcements rather than in one big month of June, which was what predominantly games were announced. Now you could get them anytime, literally, and they'll tell you the day in advance. This was this Nintendo Indie World Showcase, which dropped in April. They literally teased the day before, which is all you need. You tell me a day beforehand, and I will make sure that my schedule is clear, and I will watch your digital showcase for sure.
100%.
So Nintendo Indie World Showcase just came out, and a ton of indie video games have been announced. I'm going to list off some. If you have any interest in any of them, you do let me know.
Sure.
The first one that I have listed here, and now we're not going to list every single one, because if you want to go and watch that, go out of your way and go check it out. But we're going.
Please do.
Yes, please. Yeah. Yes, you should. You should, if you have an interest in.
Yeah.
And you should have an interest in independent video games. Some of the best games I have played in the last 10 to 15 years have been purely independent. So you never know when the next big game is going to be announced, because you never know. Sometimes these games are made by a single person, and they are worth a whole team's work. So I like paying attention to this. So first one I have here listed is Anton Blast by Summit Sphere, which is a demolitions game that is a platformer that seems to be inspired by Wario Land as well as classic side-scrollers. Did you see this?
I did. And again, I immediately looking at this thought of another game that was really, really awesome that I've been meaning to play for so long, that being Pizza Tower.
Oh, yeah.
Again, like this Wario Land-esque genre, and seeing more and more devs kind of go this route with this game, or with this style, is really, really exciting to me. This is one, certainly, this one was at the top of my list, or towards the top of my list, as far as games that I definitely want to check out. Anton Blast looks like a blast. No pun intended.
Yeah, awesome. Aesthetically, it really looks cool. And I really like. I know you said you haven't played Pizza Tower, but myself, I have played it. And that game visually is really cool. It looks like, I don't know how to explain it other than like one of those frenetic 90s cartoons. Kind of like
exactly.
Not Animaniac, but like Freakazoid or something like that. Something about it yells out like 90s cartoon. And Dynamite Anton seems to emulate a lot of those styles, as well as like that Wario Land thick border style that they do a lot of. And it looks very interesting. Another one I have listed here is Animal Well. So this one I've actually been familiar with before, and so it launches May 9th, so it's officially got a release date for the Switch, and it's a 2D exploration Metroidvania platformer. And what I know about this game and why I know so much about it is I'm actually a fan of YouTuber Video Game Donkey. Do you know who that is?
Oh, of course. Yes, absolutely.
So I think he's an incredible YouTuber. He makes incredible, funny.
I agree.
And also, when he gets into deep dives of games, he's also been, he's very thorough and he's very knowledgeable. But, he's used his resources from YouTube to actually start a publishing company for independent video games called Big Mode. They announced that in the last year. And Animal Well is their very first published game.
Oh wow! I didn't know that.
Yes,
so that's amazing.
So from my understanding is, I think this came from, they did like one of those game jams, if I remember correctly, and then eventually like expanded upon that to make Animal Well. I might be misquoting that part, but I do know that Big Mode is publishing it, and this is their very first game. I've seen a lot of clips of it. It looks like a throwback game, a lot of like 2D sprites. A lot of people have also said it kind of has inspirations by VVVVVV. That's 6 Vs. If you've never played that one, it's essentially every time you go to a different screen, that screen on its own is its own puzzle room. You move to another screen, and it has over hundreds of screens. And from my understanding, that is what Animal Well will be as well. But it's an exciting time, because now we're seeing people from the YouTube sphere investing in the games that have made them money, independent games. And we're seeing if, I actually hope this will be a big success for Big Mode, personally.
Yeah, I hope so too. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this game definitely seems really interesting. It has almost a Metroidvania or roguelike style to it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So from my understanding is your powers will expand as you continue forward, and it will unlock different areas. Awesome. Yeah, the typical map of how those are laid out, but like it's a surefire way to get me to play a game. So if you say Metroidvania, I'm definitely in.
I'm in.
Other games they've announced was there's a TMNT, a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game called Splintered Fate that is launching in July. I guess this is a game that is heavily inspired by Hades, that was originally on Apple Arcade. I've never played it myself. Have you?
Yeah. I played Hades?
No. Oh, Hades I've played a ton of.
Yeah, I played Hades. Yeah.
Yes.
But as far as what the game was inspired by, which way it's inspired by a game from Apple Arcade, you're saying?
Oh, no. So I guess this game originally was released on Apple Arcade, but it's never made a console release. So yeah, this is gonna come to consoles in July.
No, I haven't, but I will tell you this is pretty much every single, I was going to say every single recent, but really in general, so many Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle games are just so good. Like Shredder's Revenge was incredible. The Cowabunga collection was incredible. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time is still to this day my favorite arcade game of all time. I love that game. And again, a roguelike TMNT 4-person co-op game. Again, from the footage I've seen, that's so wild to know it was on Apple Arcade before this. But,
yes.
It looks amazing. It looks absolutely incredible. And hearing that makes me want to go to Apple Arcade and see if I could download this version of this game now.
I used to pay for the service, and like honestly, there's a decent amount of games in there, especially because they're mobile based. And honestly, mobile games now, there used to be like a bad connotation to them. Phones are so incredibly powerful nowadays that you could play San Andreas on a phone. So there's like there are games that are very shelled out, that are very intense. You can play Fortnite on a phone nowadays. It's just there's an insane amount of library of video games on all spectrums, on mobile, on console, purely on PC, and I'm always excited when we find out they're porting one to the other.
Uno, truth be told, I do have Apple Arcade, and let me tell you, Jetpack Joyride 2 is my go-to game when I'm on a plane or I'm traveling and I only have like 10 or 15 minutes. There are some really, really fun games on Apple Arcade. There really are. You're right, because phones have advanced so much. I remember it was so mind-blowing to see that like the entire Final Fantasy VII is on your phone. The entire Grand Theft Auto 3 on your phone. It's wild.
You can play the entirety of it and just with touchscreens, which is insane.
Yeah.
Other games that we won't go through all of these, but another one that was announced was Cat Quest 3, which launches in April and may actually have launched by the time this video has come out. I've not played the previous Cat Quest games, but it's a 2D open world action game with, of course, a cat as the titular character. I've heard great things about it. There's a demo available on Switch right now. The third one, I believe, has already out. And then I've talked to you of this off screen, but SteamWorld Dig was one of the games that I liked from the independent days for the last decade, one of my favorites. And they've expanded on that universe, making other SteamWorld games. They made SteamWorld Heist, and now it would seem the sequel, SteamWorld Heist 2, has been announced to release later this year for the Nintendo Switch.
Nice.
All right, back now out of Nintendo, and we're going to go back on a subject we actually talked about last week, which is Fallout. The Fallout TV series is a huge success. We talked about it ad nauseum last week. They just recently announced there will be a season 2. It is now confirmed, which I think we both thought it would happen. I mean, there's so much content they could play with that could probably expand for season upon season, and it'll never really fumble anything, because I don't think they're dead set on any video game story as much as they've built a universe. You can play around with that forever. Right. But that is not the only Fallout information from this week. It would seem the release of the TV show has been not only a success for the TV show itself, but for Fallout video games across the board. And I'm talking everywhere. We're talking Fallout 4, which has been out for 4+ years now, if not more. Fallout 4 I think came out in 2015. Yeah, okay, so that's so it's been out for a fair amount of time. That is now currently the best-selling game in Europe.
No way.
Yes, the top number one seller in Europe currently is Fallout 4, and that is of course predominantly because of this TV series actually, boosting sales of Fallout. And that's not it. Fallout 76 also hit its all-time peak players of over 42,000 simultaneous players. That was last Wednesday, and that is probably expanding upon it as well, because they've been selling all of the Fallout games at a reduced rate while this TV show is out. And so Fallout 76, Fallout 3, and Fallout New Vegas have all made it into the charts, and have also increased most of their player base by over 100% gains. Which is crazy.
It's especially wild considering how long these games have been out for. And to think too, it's not just one game, like not just Fallout 4 or Fallout 76, but it's again Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, every Fallout game.
The very first isometric Fallout game, which I've never played. I've always wanted to revisit Fallout 1 and 2. Only a few weeks ago would have over 200 concurrent players simultaneously on Steam. And since the show has come out and the sale, have reached over 3,000 simultaneously. So even the games that are not the formula of Fallout that everyone is enjoying have seen a huge resurgence, which is I mean, we made a big point of it last week, but that I think we're going to see more video games boom like this. I think Last of Us came out, 100%. Last year, and I think the HD and the HD Last of Us 2 sold incredibly well when that show did very well as well. And I'm sure the Mario games also sold a ton when that movie came out. It's exciting to see because I think that'll give a lot of new life to some games. Like I think Cyberpunk, for example, probably sold a ton from its anime. And, when anime season 2 comes out, I'm sure will also help sell some more stuff. Witcher also just announced they are doing their last season 5. And so that I bet you will also boost some sales of video games. It's exciting. It's exciting, especially with the way the video game industry seems to have cut on people and it was kind of on a slope down. This might actually help in the long form.
Yeah, to me, it's exciting for a million different reasons. We could literally spend, I swear, I could talk about this the entire time we're on the podcast today. But what makes me so excited for so many different reasons is, number one, I think people are starting to understand how compelling, interesting, and amazing these stories are in the world of video games. And that is translating so well to these directors who are kind of understanding what the game world is and making it their own, but still showing so much love and respect to these amazing worlds and universes that have been built within video games. And again, secondly, just the fact that it's brought more people to these amazing worlds and to these amazing games is just such a win-win. I mean, again, I know we talked about the Last of Us show. Again, Halo Season 2 I thought was excellent. I love the Witcher show. I actually, truth be told, Uno, and I'm embarrassed about this, but I still have not started the Fallout show. Hopefully next week.
Neither have I. I know we both said we were going to end up watching it, but no, I didn't find the time. I didn't find the time.
You gotta watch it. Exactly.
Another one we never mentioned that has also done very well is like those Sonic movies in the last 3-4 years. Sonic 1, Sonic 2, now they're making a Knuckles. They're making a Sonic 3, which I just saw Keanu Reeves is going to play the role of Shadow. So I think we're going to see a slow resurgence of big video game movies. And I'm here for it. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. It's an exciting time. Really exciting time.
So funnily, on the subject of that too, another news piece, Golden Axe, which you may remember from the Sega days. I played it, but not in a very, very long time. Well, it seems that they're getting their own animated series on Comedy Central, a 10-episode animated series, the Sega game series of Golden Axe, which will include... and I won't mention the entirety of the cast, but includes Matthew Rice from The Americans and Perry Mason and Danny Pudi from Mythic Quest and Community will be in there providing voices for it. And I think that's exciting. That just means even beyond just movies, there's also an interest in creating animated stuff, which I'm a big animated guy. And so I'm very excited to see if Golden Axe will be a success, maybe comparable to Cyberpunk and Castlevania.
Yeah, and that's exciting too, because again, as far as I know, there hasn't been a recent Golden Axe game in quite some time, right? This is like a retro idea of taking an old concept from an older game. The Sega Genesis was the first console I ever had. So Golden Axe was a very important game to me, growing up. But to see that they want to create this whole new series on this old Sega franchise is pretty darn awesome.
Unless I missed out on one of those like smaller HD remakes or something in the last few years.
That's what I mean.
I genuinely don't think another one came out, but if so, I'm sure someone will correct us. Please do.
I was going to say yes.
We'll check it out. We'll check it out if so. But yeah, it's exciting. That means maybe a lot of what we liked as kids is fair play. So personally, one of my favorite games ever. And you please, if you want to make a TV show, make a TV show of Super Smash TV, which is essentially like The Running Man. I know you know about this. Yes,
of course, that would be amazing, man. That'd be so awesome.
That's a series I wish would come back too. That's like a great couch co-op game.
Yes, yes. That, and I've said this before and I stand by it. If they made a proper Metal Gear Solid movie,
Yes.
oh my goodness.
For sure.
I think I brought that up last week probably as well, but man, there's so many great video game adaptations that they could add, whether it's television shows or movies or an animated series. Again, people have proven time and time again, specifically in these past few years, how successful these franchises can be on the TV screen. So yeah, that'd be awesome.
Another couple news cycle pieces. These ones are about technical tests just being released, as well as some beta tests. You mentioned that just recently the developers from Ori had just released the game. Is that early access or is that a full release? That's an early access one, right?
That's an early access.
Okay.
But apparently, again, there is a ton of content in this early access. They're releasing it to get their audience to help them decide what they want to fix, what they want to tweak, and things like that. But I believe this is just early access at this point, not the full game yet.
Okay. Well, speaking of early access, Hades, which was like a huge hit by Supergiant Games, they made Bastion, they made Transistor. Hades, I believe, when it came out, was my game of the year, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Incredible game from 2020. They announced a sequel just recently, Hades 2, that is coming to early access, I believe, in June. Maybe misquoting, but very soon. But they just released a technical test, and signups are open. You can actually go up and sign up, and from my understanding, you get a code back fairly quickly to test it. And it's up. It'll be up for about a month for them to test it, and reviews as of yet on just the testing have been really good. People seem very excited for it.
Not surprising.
The parts I like of Hades the most, I feel like they do very good combat, and gameplay wise, Supergiant is incredible. But they make such incredible music, and their narratives are so different, especially for a roguelike game. I'm really excited to see what Hades 2 will be like.
You know what? And truth be told, again, I'm ashamed to say this, but I've never finished Hades. I honest to God, I've only put a few hours into the game.
Really? Okay.
That has been a game I've been meaning to finish. My younger brother, one of his favorite games ever is Hades. Like, I remember visiting him at one point a couple years ago, and that's all he wanted to play. Like, he was all about Hades through and through. But I remember being so blown away by just how incredible, aside from the art style and the music and the combat and all that stuff, the voice acting.
Oh, yeah.
Incredible. Like, just so good. The characters were awesome. You're right. They do have a certain feel and a certain touch on that game that just, I mean, again, I haven't even finished Hades 1, and I can't wait for Hades 2. So hopefully before Hades 2 comes out, I can finish Hades 1.
Well, I think it's attainable for sure. But the thing with Hades is it actually has an ending, and then it just continues. So what I like the most about it is like a roguelike game, you can continuously keep playing it.
Yeah.
But instead of having a dead set ending on the story, it keeps trickling you some story beats over and over and over.
That's awesome.
And so it's very neat. So if you get the chance, I would definitely suggest go out of your way and go play it. Also, a beta test that is going to be a closed beta test from May 24th to June 2nd. 33 Immortals, which is a co-op action roguelike game, and maybe you've picked up on this. It's supposed to be a raid format game where you play where you are a team of 33 active players.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's essentially you're fighting hordes of monsters and large prey. Like massive bosses where all 53 of you attack at the same time. That is coming out to a beta test. It looks very interesting. So if you get the chance, go check out 33 Immortals. There's some clips out there as well as some trailers. Going back on Final Fantasy 16, we talked about that DLC that just came out recently and how excited you are. According to Square Enix, Final Fantasy 16 actually successfully expanded the series to a much younger audience. And I guess what was they had a departure from the traditional format, and they wanted to do something more action combat focused. Kind of like DMC, Devil May Cry, or a lot. They were trying to escape from the turn-based Final Fantasy, which is what you and I probably were raised on. And I guess the move of that has helped for the median age of the video game to be reduced, which means that a lot of people in their teen years and a lot of people in their early 20s have played Final Fantasy 16, which was the goal of Square Enix, which is good news because that means, the younger generation are getting attached to the series, which means the series will continue.
You're right. That is great news because it's interesting that you bring up the turn-based aspect of Final Fantasy because I love a good turn-based RPG. I really, really do. So I remember when Final Fantasy took more of an action-oriented style. I remember being so unsure of it. Like I was like, "What do you mean FF7 Remake is not going to be turn-based?" It was like my brain couldn't comprehend it or process it. But after playing Remake, Rebirth, and specifically Final Fantasy 16, it makes so much sense that a younger audience is enjoying it so much because, my goodness. So the feature in FF16 being the icons or the summons or however you want to put it. In that game, it's the icons. But when you are able to seamlessly transition with different icons and skills and abilities and it runs through, it is the coolest feeling in the world to run through the combat in Final Fantasy 16. Between the music and again how fluid the combat is, it makes so much sense that they went in that direction, and it looks beautiful. It's beautiful to play and it's beautiful to watch. It's awesome.
When I was a kid, the biggest part I liked about Final Fantasy was the summons because it was like eventually you built up to that point when you finally got to see a new one. You essentially watched a new movie, and they were so forward focused on graphics at the time, so that it was essentially you were watching something otherworldly every time a summon happens. For 16, the bit I did play, the icons are insane. Like the reveals of them, the particle effects that they've attached to them, it's been very, very neat. So great news for Final Fantasy 16. They've sold over 3 million copies in its first week, which is very comparable to a lot of PlayStation exclusives at the time. So like God of War and Spider-Man. But in contrast, and you're not going to love this one, Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth, which was also a PS5 exclusive, has received incredible high praises. But according to analysts are saying that it sold half of what they were anticipating sale-wise, including, they believe that it's sold about half of what Remake sold in the same time frame.
Wow. So I had read something briefly, hearing a story about the fact that maybe FF7 Rebirth didn't sell as much as expected, but I did not realize it was half of what Remake had sold. That's such a bummer because I mean this. Rebirth to me, it seriously is up there in my top 5, maybe even top 3 favorite video games of all time. There's so much game in there. So I'm curious as time goes on if the game ends up selling more. Maybe it's not selling as much immediately, but that's very interesting. That's very interesting to hear.
Part of me wonders if it's because of the release model. Final Fantasy VII is playing on nostalgia of a lot of us, and Remake came out, and that was the first of a Final Fantasy VII piece. Whereas then Intergrade came out, and then you have to re-advertise Final Fantasy VII, and that likely is a DLC piece, but no one understands that it's just a DLC. Like, it's a supplementary piece to the first piece. And so maybe a lot of people don't even realize that Rebirth is not Remake. I feel like a lot of people may not even realize there is a new game that came out because they associate it to the original release. And so I feel like this is me. I have no basis on this.
No, of course, we're just guessing.
We're just guessing. We're not. We're not analysts. But I bet you there is confusion between this current release and the original release of Remake.
Uno, I didn't even think of that. That is such a good point, especially because the names are so close.
Yes.
Like people could think Rebirth is just like an extended version of Remake potentially. But in addition to that, like we know for a fact. Again, I don't know what I'm talking about, just voicing my opinion. But for example, a lot of people speculated and said that the part of the reason that the Wii U sold so poorly is so many people thought the Wii U was just an upgraded version of a Wii. Like they thought it was, oh, it's the Wii Pro or whatever. Like, so that is definitely a possibility, Uno. I didn't even think about it that way.
Just shows you how important branding on stuff is. Like,
Yeah.
And even like, there's just not enough different iconography. Graphically, it's the same game. So if you're advertising a poster for one and the other, there is not much you could put on poster 2 that is dramatically different from one. Because like, one is based on Midgar, and so you could show Midgar. But if you told a person the second is outside of Midgar, they would still think it's the same game. You know, you don't realize that it has to be separated to a different game. So I bet you part of the issue is that a lot of people don't realize they are separate games, or, you know, they've had the itch scratched, you know. They had their nostalgia itch scratch, and so they have not invested in this. But it is quite sad to hear, because that is it's an incredible game. And, you know, they're going to have a third piece. Will that third piece end up getting damaged from these sales? I don't know. I doubt it. I feel like that's a piece that is going to live on forever, and so I doubt that will be the case. But it's very interesting to see where it will be, you know, several months from now. Maybe, you know, coming into the summer, we'll have more sales. Well, who knows?
It is, and that's certainly what I'm hoping for. Because speaking selfishly, again, the experience I had with this game, the experience I'm still having with FF7 Rebirth is so incredible. So I hope as time goes on, more and more people end up checking it out. Because I promise you, if you're listening to this and you're a Final Fantasy fan and you have not played Rebirth yet, trust me, you are going to love it. You have my word. There is no way that you could possibly be disappointed with this game. It's amazing. It's amazing. But like you had mentioned too, like, I don't think it will affect the third game at all. I think this is a massive passion project for Square Enix. On top of that, FF7 is kind of their golden goose. Yeah. I mean, that is, I think, the most famous, most successful overall Final Fantasy of all time. And with all the love and attention they put into Remake and Rebirth, I know that Part 3 is going to be magical. We also know at some point, probably in 2030, they'll release like all 3 games together as a giant
There'll be a
collection
package.
or whatever.
There'll be a package deal for sure.
Which I'll end up getting, even though I already own all the games.
If it comes with a steel case, I'm in. That's
yes.
That used to be the selling point for me. If it came with a steel case with a new edition, built-in DLC, I would always end up buying it.
Right.
We will talk more news right after this, but do stick around, because we've got news on the top Fortnite skins, because some data has just come out, and we're going to be talking about the World Video Game Hall of Fame finalists that are being nominated very soon. So be sure to stick around right after this. And we're back. Hello. It's us.
Hello.
It's Evil Uno and the Chugs. We've got some more news pieces, and some of it is actually data-driven, and another one I think is very interesting to both of us. But I will start with the data-driven one, because I've teased it now in 2 different ad breaks. We're going to be talking Fortnite, and why we're talking Fortnite is because Game Discover Co., which is a agency that asks how do players find, buy, and enjoy their video games, and they go over the data of video game sales to figure out what sells well, what sells the most. They've actually deciphered what is the best third-party player skins from Fortnite, and the way they've done that is they went into the percentage of usage. So, for example, when a season comes out, some characters come out strictly in that season, and based on how much usage they had in that patch, in that season, they could tell which was most popular. And so, to give you an idea, Fortnite releases a lot of skins, but some of those skins are exclusive to one season or exclusive to one period of time, so it's hard to decipher from one to the other which one sells the most, you know, because for example, and this will only pay the people that play Fortnite, the Weekend skin has been there for 2 months straight, and that obviously will sell more than a skin that has been around for maybe 2 or 3. So they've extrapolated all this data, and they've compiled this list of the top third-party Battle Pass skins and the top third-party skins for purchase separate of a Battle Pass.
I'm stoked to hear this.
Yeah, that's perfect.
I'm very curious.
This will bring a bigger discussion about skins too, because I'm willing to admit, and I hate putting myself in the line of fire. I'm willing to admit what kind of skins I've bought myself. Okay, so this first list is ones that are exclusive to the Battle Pass. So this means that you had to purchase the Battle Pass to get them, and so you didn't purchase V-Bucks separately to buy them. You had to get them within the Battle Pass, so they had to be unlocked. I won't go through. They've listed the top 20. I'll just give you the top 10, and that way we can keep this simplified. The top one of all time, according to this, for Battle Pass skins is one that I have no relation to, is Neymar Jr. Do you know who Neymar Jr. is?
No.
And I will tell you why you don't, because both of us are not sports guys. It would seem this is a Brazilian footballer, and that includes, based on the patch that he was released, over 13% of users would use his skin when the skin was released. And that is the top third-party pass skin.
You said 13% of users have used this?
Yes,
that
at the
is
time.
An unbelievable stat. For Fortnite?
Yes.
13%
of people that were actively playing it used the skin. So that is how they end up going through this data. The second one was, and you're gonna see a pattern here. Jennifer Walters. Now, if you're not you probably don't know what this is, but Jennifer Walters is who is She-Hulk. She becomes She-Hulk. That is the character that becomes She-Hulk. That skin was available during the Marvel Battle Pass.
Nice.
That had over 11% of users, 11.65% users using it. A lot of that has to do also that they were available earlier in the Battle Pass rather than later in it. Third was Thor, also from Marvel. Fourth was The Mandalorian, completely explainable. He, I believe, was a bonus skin for his season. I also have The Mandalorian.
Nice.
Lara Croft from Tomb Raider is number 4.
Nice.
Number 5, also from the Marvel Pass, was Tony Stark. Number 6, Predator. Makes sense.
Cool.
Number 7, Number 7 was Predator. Number 8 was Storm. Mystique at number 9, and Deadpool at number 10. Almost all of the ones after that, going into the top 20, are superheroes, with the exception of Rick from Rick and Morty, and a real life celebrity that I've never heard of called Googieman. And I did not look into it, and so I can give you no information about Googieman. But predominantly, the Battle Pass skins that have done the best are superhero skins, with the exception, I guess, football, or American. In America, we call it soccer. I guess is larger than superheroes, because I don't know anything about Neymar Jr., and he is percentage above almost everyone else on this list.
Yeah, that's wild. I mean, that shows you, again, the type of audience that Fortnite attracts. I mean, at the end of the day, too, I know there are quite a few people, and there's nothing wrong with this, by the way, but I know quite a few people who only play Fortnite.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they don't play other games. It's all they play is Fortnite. So to see that kind of audience and what they're interested in and what they want to buy skin-wise is fascinating to me. But you're right. Like, a bunch of that list makes a ton of sense to me as far as popularity goes. But you're right. Number 1, I had no idea that was the case.
Clue.
13%. That's amazing.
And
That's
a
amazing.
lot of times when when I'm gonna tell you the pay to download skins in a minute, but a lot of times I look through this list and realize that maybe we're old now, and maybe we're just completely out of touch with what people like, because this next list includes so many people I've never even heard of. So get ready for this one. All right. So the top third-party pay-to-download skins. So this is the top percent usage during a patch, but strictly for ones that you pay to download. They were not a part of a battle pass. Okay. Number 1 is Travis Scott, which is a hip-hop performer.
I do know Travis Scott.
Yeah,
yep.
I know of Travis Scott as well. I don't know much of his music, but I do know Travis Scott. That is number 1 with over 8%, 8.39%. Number 2 jumps down to 4%. So that shows you to what extent Travis Scott is the most popular pay-to-download skin. The second is from a real life celebrity called Astrojack. No clue who that is. I have no idea what Astrojack is, and you're going to hear me say that for a couple more people in a minute. Number 3, Slim Shady, Eminem.
Yeah, baby.
Is up there. I also, I believe, have purchased Eminem, and I will voice it out loud.
I don't blame you.
No, I'm a fan.
Uno, just a huge hip hop fan.
Yeah, me too.
Huge hip hop.
I love hip hop.
Yeah.
Eminem. It did not introduce me to the world of hip hop, but
Right.
in my generation, Eminem, and also in this generation, Eminem, one of the juggernauts of hip hop for sure.
Easily.
Fourth, and this is surprising. This is the most bought Marvel one. Psylocke, who I'm a Marvel fan, or I'm a superhero fan. That's an interesting one. I did not anticipate to be so far ahead. The next most sold number 5 is Harley Quinn from DC, which makes a ton of sense.
100%.
The 6th was Lewis Hamilton, who I guess is a real life celebrity. And I'm sorry, Lewis, I just don't know anything about you. I'm assuming he must be a musical artist as well, I would think. Yeah, or it could be a streamer as well.
I definitely fall into that camp, and this is just me being honest, but so many times I'm so bad with names.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I'll see a celebrity's face and go, oh my God, I know who that is. But as far as remembering all the names, it's tough sometimes. It's tough sometimes,
I have no clue in that, but I will admit I'm not the most knowledgeable person on what is
Me
hip.
either.
I still use the word rad, so that gives you an idea of how old I am
do
now.
too, dude.
Yeah, I think we're just too old for this.
Right.
Number 7 is Catwoman. That makes a ton of sense. 2.49% of skin percent users. Number 8 is Booga, which I believe is a Twitch streamer. So I believe he's just a very popular YouTuber / Twitch streamer. 2.25% have purchased him. Next is a Naruto character. Now, I've never seen Naruto. I know of Naruto himself, but this one is Kakashi Hatake. No clue, but very cool anime skin. And the 10th one is Polo Prodigy, which is actually just a skin from the brand Polo, which is actually very surprising because I just didn't know that was a dominant brand in the world.
I didn't
nowadays.
either. That's amazing. Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
And to give you an idea, the rest of the 10, we have there's streamers on there like the Gref G, which I don't know any about. There's some musicians in there. Naruto himself, Son Goku from Dragon Ball is in the rest of the top 10, as well as some Star Wars character. But most of them are usually are music artists. That seem to be the top dominant sales. Now,
nice.
Why did I bring all of this up? Because I actually kind of want to discuss real quickly about DLC, but most specifically skins, and most specifically because a lot of times I'm not a big fan of DLC practices and microtransactions, but for some reason Fortnite has been able to break down my barrier, and I have spent a dumb amount of money on skins that have surprisingly brought me a lot of pleasure. Something about purchasing Batman and making him do funny dances really gets to me. So what I'd like to talk about is just visual DLCs, skins that we may have purchased. Most of mine are in Fortnite, but what kind of skins have you purchased across games?
Yeah, so I did quickly want to mention as well, because I'm in agreement with you as far as, I guess the term that sometimes people use is like pay to win, for example, where you can fall into that trap where if you spend even more money to get better weapons or to give you more of an advantage within the game, I understand why that could be a problem for a lot of people. However, as far as cosmetics go, I think it's awesome. I think it's cool that devs give you the option to get a bunch of different skins or different outfits, whether it's for your character or for your weapons or things like that. I think it's cool. And I've definitely gone into the camp that you have, where I've put so much time into whether it's obtaining the skins organically or spending money to get them. And the number one that comes to my mind easily was the game that made me fall in love with games, and that is Halo 5. Halo 5 had this incredible mode called Warzone. where it was literally 12v12. So it was 12 Spartans against another 12 Spartans with enemy bosses in between and bases that you had to capture and things like that. But in addition to that, they had this really cool feature where you could get like upgraded versions of guns that you could use, whether it was an upgraded rocket launcher or an upgraded sniper rifle and things like that. But in addition to that, there were countless armors, helmets, visors, weapon skins, and that's kind of what really got me into going down that rabbit hole of saying like, oh, I could get this gold battle rifle skin. This skin looks absolutely amazing. So I put a lot of time and effort and spent quite a bit of money on some Halo 5 skins, in addition to Halo Infinite. I've gotten quite a few there as well, but some other games, Helldivers 2, I've definitely spent some money on to get some more gear.
There's some cool capes in there. There's some cool capes in there.
Oh, so cool. Yep. So cool. And there's another really fun game that I play with a friend of mine called The Finals.
It's free to play as well, right?
Yeah, that's completely free to play. You don't have to get the battle pass, but I decided to get the battle pass, and again, so many different outfits and different skins you can get for your guns. I love the option and the choice to be able to go through all these different weapons that you really like and just make them look pretty. You know, make them look pretty.
I've always loved cosmetics, and I think that like as far as DLC practices, the way I like it is like either give me a big chunk of story, essentially add on to the game, or sell me a visual element like a skin.
Yes.
And I've always been capable of not spending the money. I always tell myself, is it really that important? Do I really need it? But I think every single time I've broken that rule is Batman. Now, if Batman plays a huge part of my life, I had a Batman wedding. I literally, my room that's surrounded by me is covered in Batman stuff and figures and stuff. But the Batman video games, you could buy a lot of the previous Batman skins. You could be Adam West Batman in I believe Arkham Knight. And so like a lot of those games I ended up purchasing DLCs. And then Fortnite, I've purchased Batman, I've purchased Harley Quinn, I've purchased Catwoman, John Wick, what else have I got? Michael Myers. I've spent a lot of money on Fortnite. What I'm trying to get at is that for as much as I don't like the DLC practices, it's gotten its hooks into me. And obviously it's gotten its hooks into a lot of other people because Fortnite is just dumping resources into these third-party things. And it seems to be working because I think that's what got me to come back to the game, even though the game is constantly being expanded upon on a gameplay basis. I think these third-party deals definitely attracts people to these games.
Oh, 100% for sure. Again, it's one of those practices that Fortnite has had for quite some time. And it's so, not only is it incredibly smart, but clearly based on the audience who is playing this game, they love stuff like this.
Yep.
They absolutely love stuff like this. And I love stuff like that as well. I think it's fun. It's cool. It keeps the game fresh. And like you said, it's exciting to run around in Fortnite playing as Batman. Like... It sounds like a blast.
It's honestly it's the only game where you could have a Marvel character fight a DC character. And legally it stands, which is insane. All right, we've talked a good part about Fortnite, but we've actually have a story that both of us are very interested in. The Strong National Museum of Play, that is the museum in Rochester, New York. If you've never visited, you should definitely do it. It is an incredible museum. I did it last year, and it will likely go again this year.
Nice.
Every year they reveal nominees for the Player's Choice Ballot Award for the National Museum of Play. To give you an idea, some of the video games that have been inducted into the National Museum of Play are Pong, Super Mario Brothers, Legend of Zelda. And last year's winners in 2023, there were 4 of them. Wii Sports was put in. Makes a ton of sense. Computer space, which I know nothing about, surprisingly.
I do.
Really?
I do.
Tell me.
Yeah. So computer space is incredibly important in the history of video games. This game is long overdue as far as being put into the video game or National Museum of Play, because computer space was the first video game that was distributed and sold in any capacity. You know, a lot of historians consider Tennis for Two the first real video game. That was October 18th, 1958. Space War, made by Steve Russell, was just kind of distributed amongst his colleagues and at different labs and things like that. But Computer Space was the first coin-operated arcade machine ever released. It was only released in a few different areas, but Computer Space is very important. Actually, very similar to Space War in a lot of ways. But Computer Space was first commercially available video game. So yeah, that deserves its spot.
Hey, you know what? The books you've been reading have really paid off this very moment.
I love it.
We didn't even pre-cook this part.
Nope.
That was a genuine. I've just learned about this game. Thank you very much. Also from last year's winners, Last of Us. Makes a ton of sense. That's actually one of the greatest stories ever. That's actually one of the more recent games to ever make it to that list. So that's very impressive.
I was going to say.
And the last from last year was Barbie Fashion Designer, which pretty self-explanatory. I believe this is like the first of those like video games where you could like superimpose the clothing and shift the character designs. I believe that was a PC game or a Mac game at the time. So this year, 3 or 4 games will be added. The way it works is they choose finalists that they believe will make the list, and they also put a Player's Choice award. Now, the voting for Player's Choice is already over, but the top voted ones will be added to the picks, and those will go into the Hall of Fame this year. On Thursday, May 9th is when they will be announcing it. So this year's nominees, and I would like to go through them. And also, I think both of us should pick our 3 up here that we think should be nominated. But
this would be tough.
And also, please, you're much more of a historian on this stuff, so if there's cool stuff to say about it, please do. Okay, this year's nominees, Asteroids from 1979. I think that's pretty self-explanatory.
Yes, absolutely. To me, again, an incredibly influential and important video game. Like so many people know of or have played Asteroids before. That's a special game. It definitely deserves to be on the list.
The next one is Elite. That is from 1984. I don't know any. I don't think that might be an Atari game if I remember correctly.
I was gonna say that one's not coming to me off the top of my head.
It's a space trading video game that was on. Let me see here.
Sure.
It revolutionized 3D graphics, which I believe that is probably why it was included. And it was on Commodore 64, BBC Micro, a lot of the early like computer generated games from 1984. No, third nomination is Guitar Hero for 2005. King of Peripherals. I think everyone at one point in their time, if they didn't own the guitar, at least went to a person's house and played with it at some point in their lives.
The like social influence that Guitar Hero had. Again, I know we talked about, for example, there are some people that only play Fortnite. There was a phase in my life where it was like every house that I went to, or people who didn't even play games, so many people had Guitar Hero, or would ask if someone had Guitar Hero. That game took over the world. What a massive game that was.
As far as like a young adult, parties as a young adult were like strictly playing Guitar Hero most of the time.
Yes.
Anywhere I
100%.
attended, someone's like, "Can you play Through the Fire and Flames?" No, I can't. And then you'd watch someone try it. Fourth nominee is Myst from 1993. That is the PC game from Obsidian, I believe.
I think Bungie. Was it? Or was it Bungie did? Or no, I'm thinking of Marathon. My mistake.
Oh, maybe. Myth, I believe, is...
I think you are right, actually.
This is the beauty of doing this and having a computer in front of me. Developed by Cyan. Oh, okay. I was wrong. So it's an adventure video game.
I was way off. But I'm thinking of Marathon, which was a Myst-esque game. But okay, yeah.
So that's like a first-person adventure game where we go through an island filled with puzzles. Very, very difficult, but almost everyone at the time was playing it. Fifth game is
beautiful.
Oh, incredible! And there's an HD remake. There's also a sequel, and those people Cyan have also gone on to make other games like Obstruction and other stuff as well. Neopets from 1999. I've never played with a Neopet, but
Not either.
I did. That's your virtual pets. You might know Tamagotchi.
Oh yeah.
So that is a similar concept. Neopet, I believe, was the first to originate it. The sixth nominee, and this one's going to be a big talking point for both of us, Resident Evil from 1996, the king of survival horror, the game. It maybe not the first survival horror game, but it is the game that popularized the style for sure.
Yeah. So Resident Evil again. Yeah, because like you said, the first proper, I think, survival horror third-person tank control game would be like the original Alone in the Dark.
Yes.
I know that one was really important. But also, Resident Evil was based off a game, Sweet Home.
Yes.
Which was also
Super
very...
NES, right? I believe?
Yes. Yeah, very influential in the horror genre. But my goodness. I'll save it, but Resident Evil is one of the most important games for me personally in my life. And again, it revolutionized the survival horror genre as a whole, for sure. So important.
We'll go through these a little quicker too, since I know we're going to extrapolate some more.
Oh, sure, sorry.
No, don't worry about it. Sim City was the other nominee. So I played a lot of Sim City. It went on to become The Sims as well. It essentially became what a simulation game is. Like those Civ games that there's so many different type of Civ games. It all pretty much originated from Sim City. Another nominee, I've never played this one, but I looked into it. Tokimeki Memorial, and that is a dating simulator game made by Konami, and I believe that might be the first ever dating simulator game.
Wow.
Which I've never played, but influential in the style because there are so many of those out now.
Oh yeah.
Another nominee, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. I personally prefer the second one, but the second one doesn't exist without the first one. And those games are still incredible to this day. Ultima, which I might be wrong, but may still be active nowadays. If I'm not wrong.
I feel like you might be correct because there have been so many versions of Ultima as well. But yeah, that was a very important game. Ultima may still be active.
Ultima Online is still active to this day.
Still active.
Yeah.
In 1981, Ultima came out.
Yeah. So that gives you an idea of just the long-standing impact it's had. You don't know Jack, so you may know those games nowadays because especially through the pandemic, everyone knows about it under Jackbox games.
Yeah.
The original was You Don't Know Jack. It was more of a trivia game that you could play with your friends and share with it. But that was the precursor to what we know nowadays, with Fibbage and Quiplash and the Trivia Murder Party. That's all of those series originated from You Don't Know Jack, and that's also why Jackbox TV is based on Jack the character as well. The final entrant and the final nominee for 2024 is Metroid, 1987's NES classic Metroid. I'm sure we're going to talk about it a ton. Because we're both going to pick three that we think should be introduced into the Hall of Fame this year. Now, there might be a chance there's more than three that come in because the way it works is the fans vote for a title, and if that title is a part of the three that the panel has already chosen, then nothing is added. But if it is not part of it, it is then added as part of the four games that will be introduced. So, do you know the three that you would put in?
Oh,
it's a tough. This is actually way tougher than it seems because, like, a lot of these games, even though they may not have influenced me, they've influenced games that I have influenced my life. So, like, one game led to another game, which led to another game, which led to another game. I have two that I feel very confident of saying I would nominate. And then my third is kind of a crapshoot because I would give it to most of these games too. So I'll start with what. So my first, and this may not even be, might be unconventional, but I think Guitar Hero, almost above everything else on this list, should be nominated, and that is because much like Wii Sports that was nominated the previous year, it broke the barrier of what was acceptable to be a video game. So what I mean by that is that my mom wouldn't play anything unless it was The Sims or a mobile game, but she would play Guitar Hero. You know, my grandmother didn't know anything about video games, but she would try Guitar Hero and she would try Wii Sports. So you could really just bring that guitar to anyone, and the drum kit eventually when they get to that set, and the microphone and so on. But Guitar Hero started a trend that I think we're still coming back to now. You know, Fortnite just came out with a new music mode, and once the peripherals will come out, I think there will be a new life for those type of games. But as far as a game that was influential and that we'll never probably see something the same, Guitar Hero would be my first nominee.
I truth be told, and not to jump in because I know you're in the middle of your list as well, but just to reiterate, I feel like strictly based on the influence it had within the gaming industry, it'd be so hard to not include Guitar Hero on this list as far as importance.
It's a pretty safe bet. I think that'll make it. What's one of your picks? And if Guitar is one of them, that's great too. That means we could consolidate it.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you right now, the one that I knew for sure, like number one, how Guitar Hero was for you, and I do agree with you in a lot of ways, but I keep going back and forth between two different ones. But the one for sure for me is Resident Evil. Again, this is based on my own personal experience, but that feeling of dread and nervousness of like the first time playing the original Resident Evil and walking into that side room and then playing that cutscene with the zombie like turning his head really slow and the music playing horrified me as a kid. Absolutely horrified me. But I couldn't step away. I just wanted to play it. Resident Evil has influenced the Silent Hill genre, so many different horror games, Dead Space, I think in a lot of ways, just the entire survival horror genre of video games is an amazing aspect of what makes video games so special. And I don't know if any of that's possible without the original Resident Evil. Resident Evil 2 is one of my favorite video games ever made. And that's both the original and RE2 remake. Both those are just so good. But to me, you can't like I can't imagine horror in the world of video games without something like Resident Evil. So for me, Resident Evil for sure is on that list.
And that is one of my nominees as well. And I think about it even beyond that. Like, of course, every horror game is influenced by it, but there's an entire industry. I think the entire YouTube gaming sphere would be completely different if Resident Evil never came out, because we probably wouldn't have expanded on horror the way we do now. And a lot of what made YouTube gaming popular is people reacting to these horror games that a lot of people were terrified of playing. And so beyond like the video game initiating a whole type of video game, it bred a completely different side of the gaming sphere as a visual basis. And on top of that, also a whole TV series, a whole movie series. Like it is very influential, and that is also one of my choices as well. I only have one left, and this is where I find it tough because I like so many of these games, and I feel like whatever I'm going to say is going to be insulting to everything else. But I think I'm going to go for a safe bet and say my third pick would be Asteroids, and part of that is, of course, how old it is and essentially originated a lot of what, like it is before my time for sure. But when I was a kid, I knew of Asteroids because my mom spoke highly of Asteroids. You would go to an arcade cabinets and they would have the lay down, the lay down arcade cabinets of Asteroids. The first time I played Atari, one of the first games I ever played was Asteroids as well. Eventually, first time I owned a computer, games that I played on it first were influenced by Asteroids. So I feel like Asteroids set the tone for what kind of sci-fi video games could be, as well as like it branched its own style of game as well.
Everyone listening, you're not going to believe this because me and Uno did not talk about this beforehand.
Not at all.
Literally, that was going to be my list. As I was literally going to say Resident Evil, Guitar Hero, and also Asteroids. So for the sake of it, okay, well, I do agree with this. Me and Uno have the exact same idea as far as our top three, but just for the sake of bringing it up, I would like to do an honorable mention to Metroid. I think.
Just
because of how much I love Metroidvanias as a whole. The original Metroid was such an important game as far as encapsulating the imagination of young gamers. I think that game was so important for me. I kept going back and forth on if I wanted to do Metroid or Guitar Hero. I think Metroid, again, incredibly influential game, so important. But Uno, I'm with you. If I had to pick a top 3, I'm going Guitar Hero, Resident Evil, and Asteroids. I can't believe we picked the exact same 3.
We're very like-minded. It's every time it comes to these things, we just end up falling on the same ones. And everyone that's listening out there, if you're watching the YouTube format, youtube.com/aewgames, do put in the comments down below the 3 that you would pick as your nominees from this year, and who you think should be a nominee for next year's list, because this is a list that happens every year. We'll all get to vote about it, and if the podcast is around in a year, and I'm sure it will be, I'm sure we'll be discussing it as well. Chugs, where can we find you? What are you up to in the coming weeks? Tell us more about your Twitch streaming.
Yes. So I stream fairly consistently. I'd say 5 or 6 days a week. If it were up to me, I'd stream 7 days a week. But you can find me over at twitch.tv/thechugs. Again, I'm currently going through a 5-game cycle, that being The Witcher 3. I'm going to start the Final Fantasy 16 story DLC. I'm going to continue Dark Souls 2, Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, Silent Hill 1 on the PlayStation 1. So playing a wide variety of stuff on there. But come hang out if you would like. Again, it's twitch.tv/thechugs.
Go find your favorite new variety streamer, The Chugs, on Twitch. Also, if you want more AEW Games content, you can find us across the board everywhere. AEW Games on YouTube, on Twitter, or X now. But if you're going to find us on Instagram, that is Play AEW Games. Just recently, we announced Samoa Joe and a new season of DLC is coming to AEW Fight Forever. Do check it out. AEW Fight Forever available on PC and all consoles of your choice. We also have some mobile games. If you search AEW Rise to the Top, a great mobile game that just released recently from us, is available, and it is free. I'm Evil Uno. You can find me Evil Uno across the board on every single social media. I unfortunately don't Twitch stream like I used to, but when I do, make sure you find me twitch.tv/Evil Uno. I'm either doing mystery wrestling or we will play a video game, and I do intend to get back to it as well. Also, it's free. Hit that subscription button or that follow button down below so that you can watch our next episode or listen to it. If you're listening to the podcast, every Monday, a new episode will come out. We talk the best of news. We talk about the video games we were playing, as well as some big pieces. Soon we're going to be playing some big games. With summer coming around, there's going to be the Summer Game Fest. There's going to be all these announcements. There's so many games that are coming up in the next 2 months. Do make sure you hit that follow button because we're going to have a lot to talk about.
2024 is going to be a wild year for this podcast. It really, really is. I'm excited.
The first 4 months of this year have already been unreal. So make sure you hit that follow button so that you can hear more of the All Elite Arcade podcast. I appreciate you coming in and listening to us talk about video games. Chugs, give us a goodbye.
Yes. Goodbye, everyone. We love you.
Goodbye, friends.